Have you ever heard of a time when women were practically invisible?
Invisible?
Yeah, in public life.
Oh.
Their voices were stifled and their choices limited.
Mm.
Now picture this. A woman bursts onto the scene, sword in hand,
Oh.
defying every convention imaginable.
Okay.
That's Julie d'Aubigny,
Better known as
better known as La Maupin.
La Maupin.
And let me tell you, it's a story that's as captivating as it is unbelievable.
I bet.
You shared some incredible excerpts from the Noble Blood podcast about her.
Yes.
And I have to say, just reading them had me hooked.
It's a story that really captures the imagination. Even centuries later, Julie d'Aubigny's life continues to fascinate and inspire.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the world of La Maupin.
Okay.
The podcast starts with her childhood.
Okay.
And it's far from your typical 17th century upbringing.
Right.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Julie's father, Gaston d'Aubigny, worked for the Comte d'Armagnac,
Okay.
the king's master of the horse.
What does that mean?
So think of it as like the royal stable master, but with a lot more power and prestige.
Okay. So we're talking about someone close to the king.
Exactly.
Someone important.
Someone very important. And in this rather unique environment, Julie was not only taught the expected social graces, but also trained in sword fighting alongside the page boys.
Sword fighting. For a young girl.
Precisely.
That's unheard of for that time.
It's unheard of, and this detail already suggests a certain defiance of convention, perhaps even a deliberate choice on her father's part to nurture her independent spirit.
It's fascinating to think about what motivated him. Did he see something special in her?
Possibly.
A spark that needed to be fanned.
It's certainly possible. Sadly, her father passed away when she was still quite young, and that's when her life took a complicated turn.
Because enter the Comte d'Armagnac.
Right. Yes. The Comte steps in, becoming Julie's guardian. But this wasn't a simple act of kindness. He also became her lover.
Oh, my.
A situation made all more complex by the power dynamics at play, considering her young age.
It's a stark reminder of the realities of that era.
Absolutely.
The limited choices for women.
Yeah.
And the abuse of power that was often hidden beneath the veneer of courtly life.
Absolutely. And to further control her future, the Comte arranged for Julie to marry a man named Monsieur de Maupin, a tax collector from whom she derives her famous nickname,
La Maupin.
La Maupin.
It sounds so rebellious, so daring.
And fitting, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Because Julie, as you might expect, was not one to be easily controlled.
She didn't just accept this arranged marriage, did she?
Not at all. She ran away.
Oh.
And not alone, she escaped with a fencing master named Saran, who also became her lover.
Now that's a dramatic escape.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what was Saran like? Was he simply a convenient partner in crime, or was there a genuine connection there?
That's a good question. The sources are somewhat limited on Saran's character, unfortunately.
Oh.
But what is clear is that Julie sought freedom and adventure, and she found it on the road with him.
So they're traveling through France, performing fencing demonstrations?
That's right.
It sounds almost romantic in a way, this life of freedom and defiance.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But even this unconventional path couldn't hold Julie's attention for too long.
Really?
She was restless, ambitious, always seeking something more, and that search led her to Marseille and the world of opera.
This is where her story really starts to take off.
It does indeed. This is where we see the emergence of La Maupin, the opera singer, the lover, the rule breaker, and it all starts with a forbidden love and a daring escape from a burning convent.
Okay, now I have to hear about this burning convent. It sounds incredible.
It is.
Okay.
Just imagine Julie now, a young opera singer with a powerful voice and a magnetic stage presence. During one of her performances, she catches the eye of a merchant's daughter in the audience.
Wow.
Their connection is undeniable, and they begin a passionate affair that quickly becomes the talk of Marseille.
I can only imagine the scandal this caused in 17th century France.
Right.
A woman loving another woman.
It was a big deal.
That must have been incredibly daring.
It was.
Even dangerous.
Absolutely. This was a time when same-sex relationships were not only frowned upon, but considered a sin.
Oh, wow.
Even a crime.
Okay.
So their affair outraged the local community, especially the young woman's father.
Of course.
Determined to put an end to their relationship, he sends his daughter to a convent.
So he thought the convent would, like, cure her.
Of her love for Julie.
Yeah.
It seems that was his hope, yes. But he underestimated Julie's determination.
Oh, I bet.
She refused to be separated from her beloved.
So what did she do?
Well, she didn't try to reason with the father or plead with the nuns at the convent.
What did she do?
Julie was never one for conventional approaches.
Okay.
Instead, she hatches a daring, almost unbelievable plan.
Oh,
She enters the convent pretending to be interested in becoming a nun herself.
that's a bold move considering her lifestyle. It makes you wonder if she had a sense of irony about it all.
Perhaps she did, but the deception was necessary for her plan to work. Now, here's where the story gets even more incredible.
Okay.
One of the elderly nuns in the convent passes away from natural causes, and Julie sees an opportunity. She takes the deceased nun's body, places it in her lover's room,
Oh my goodness.
and sets a fire, hoping to make it look like the young woman perished in the blaze.
Oh my goodness. That's incredibly risky.
Desperate times.
And a little bit morbid, to be honest. Did she really think she could pull it off?
Well, it was a desperate gamble fueled by love and a willingness to defy any obstacle. And while it allowed them to escape, it didn't go exactly as planned.
What happened?
The fire spread quickly, engulfing the entire convent in flames.
So she inadvertently caused a major disaster.
Yes, but in the chaos and pandemonium, Julie and her lover managed to escape unnoticed.
Wow.
However, the consequences were swift and severe. Julie was sentenced to death in absentia by the Parliament in Provence.
Wait, Parliament in Provence. What does that even mean?
That's a good question. It refers to a regional governing body with judicial powers.
Right.
Kind of like a high court, but specific to the Provence region.
Okay.
They charged her with arson, body snatching, and kidnapping. But here's where it gets really interesting. The court actually sentenced her as a man.
As a man. Why would they do that? Was it some kind of legal loophole?
It's not entirely clear, but historians speculate that they wanted to spare the merchant's family further humiliation.
Ooh.
By sentencing Julie as a man, they could obscure the fact that their daughter had run off with another woman.
Okay.
It was a way to try to bury the scandal.
That's a strange twist.
Yeah.
So Julie's on the run,
Yes.
sentenced to death.
Yes.
What happens next?
Well, she leaves her lover behind, returning her safely to her parents. Then she finds herself in the company of an aging singing teacher named Mahazel, who recognizes her incredible talent and encourages her to pursue a career in opera.
So even amidst all this chaos, her passion for music never faded.
It seems not, and thankfully she had someone who believed in her talent and helped her hone her craft.
So this is where her path leads to the Paris Opera,
Right.
the most prestigious stage in France.
Yes. It's quite a journey, especially considering she was still technically a fugitive.
Wow.
But even more surprising is that she eventually receives a royal pardon for her previous crimes.
A royal pardon from the king himself. That's incredible. What
Yeah.
happened? Did someone plead her case?
The details are a bit murky, but it seems her talent played a role. Julie possessed a powerful contralto voice,
Right.
perfect for portraying strong, captivating female characters, and word of her talent must have reached the right ears, perhaps even the king himself.
So not only did she escape a death sentence, she also managed to secure a coveted spot at the Paris Opera. It sounds like the beginning of a whole new chapter.
It was, but Julie's life was never destined for quiet success, even at the Paris Opera.
Right.
Her larger-than-life personality, her disregard for convention, and her penchant for swordplay kept her in the spotlight.
Both on and off the stage.
On and off the stage.
This is where we get to those famous scandals.
Yes.
Those duels that made her a legend.
Exactly. Julie was a magnet for trouble, but she always met it head-on with her wit as sharp as her sword.
So tell me, what kind of trouble are we talking about?
Well, there's the story of Delba, a man who made the mistake of making a suggestive remark about Julie during one of her tavern performances.
He obviously didn't realize he was dealing with a skilled swordswoman.
Not at all. Julie, never one to back down from a challenge, promptly challenged him to a duel. And of course she won, running him through the shoulder with her sword.
Ouch. That would certainly teach him a lesson.
It seems it did, but Julie also had a surprising sense of compassion.
Really?
She actually visited Delba in the hospital.
Wow.
And depending on which version of the story you believe,
Bah.
they either became lovers or lifelong friends.
That's an interesting detail.
It is.
It humanizes her a bit, shows that beneath the tough exterior, she was capable of remorse and perhaps even forgiveness.
Yes. It adds a layer of complexity to her character, doesn't it? Then there's the incident with another opera singer, Dumenil, who insulted her singing and spat at her feet after she rejected his advances.
I have a feeling this didn't end well for Dumenil.
You're right. Julie again challenged him to a duel,
Of course.
easily disarmed him,
Ah.
and instead of stabbing him, she chose to humiliate him by beating him with a cane
Oh, wow.
and taking his snuff box and watch as trophies.
Oh, my.
Later, she found him surrounded by admirers,
Oh, no.
fabricating a story about being robbed by thieves.
Didn't?
Julie, amused by his theatrics, simply tossed his stolen belongings back at him, exposing his lie.
That's brilliant. She had a way of turning humiliation into a form of justice.
She did, but all these duels pale in comparison to her most famous escapade, the one that earned her the nickname La Maupin and solidified her place in history.
You're talking about the Evening of Gasps.
The Evening of Gasps.
I've heard whispers of this story, but I need to hear all the details.
It's a story that has to be told in full to be truly appreciated. Picture a grand party, hosted by the king's own brother Julie, dressed in men's clothing as was her custom. Arrives and is immediately drawn to a beautiful young woman. They dance, and as the music ends, Julie, in a moment of unbridled passion, kisses the woman deeply, right there in front of everyone.
Talk about a scandalous move.
Right.
What was the reaction of the court?
As you can imagine, it caused a sensation. Gasps, whispers, and looks of shock filled the room.
Wow.
But it gets even more dramatic.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to Julie, the woman she kissed had 3 suitors at the party.
Oh, no. I have a feeling this isn't going to end well.
You're right. The 3 suitors, fueled by jealousy and a sense of propriety, challenged Julie to a duel.
3 against 1. That seems a bit unfair.
It does, but Julie, never one to back down, accepted the challenge, and here's the remarkable part. She dueled all 3 of them, one after the other,
Wow.
and defeated them all.
Wow, that's incredible. 3 duels in one night and she wins them all. Sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it? But remember, dueling was illegal.
Right.
Even for men, there were serious consequences, so this event could have easily ended in tragedy.
For her, or for her opponents.
For Julie, or for one of her opponents.
So what happened? Did the king throw her in prison for this outrageous act?
He could have, but fate, it seems, was on Julie's side, once again the king's brother, who witnessed the entire spectacle, found the whole thing quite amusing, and actually pleaded with the king for another pardon.
So not only did she get away with dueling 3 men, she also had the king's brother on her side. She really did have a knack for landing on her feet.
She did, it seems. Her audacity and charisma were as sharp as her sword. But even with royal pardons and a successful opera career, Julie's life continued to be filled with adventure and intrigue.
So there's more to this incredible saga.
Oh, yes. The Evening of Gasps was just one chapter in a life that spanned continents, defied expectations, and left a lasting legacy that's still felt today.
Okay, so you left me hanging with this promise of more adventure.
Oh, yes.
And intrigue. So what happens next in the life of La Maupin?
Well, things in Paris eventually cooled down.
Yeah.
But Julie's wanderlust didn't. She left France and ended up in Brussels, where she started an affair with none other than the Elector of Bavaria.
An elector.
Yeah.
That sounds important.
He was very important.
Okay.
Think of it as a prince with even more influence, someone who could potentially become Holy Roman Emperor.
Oh, wow. So we're talking about a whole new level of courtly intrigue.
Exactly.
And knowing Julie, I bet she didn't shy away from the drama.
You know her well. During one of our performances,
Okay.
She decided to use a real dagger
A real dagger.
instead of a stage dagger for a particularly dramatic scene.
So wait, she stabbed herself.
Well,
On purpose.
it wasn't a suicide attempt, more like a shock tactic to heighten the drama.
Oh, okay.
But the Elector was not amused.
My bad.
In fact, he was so startled and offended by the incident that he offered Julie a large sum of money to end their relationship.
Wow. So he basically paid her to leave.
Yeah, 40,000 francs.
That's one way to break up with someone. Do we know how she reacted to this?
Unfortunately, the sources are a bit vague on her immediate response.
Okay.
But what we do know is that she left Bavaria soon after and continued her travels. This time, she went to Spain and took a rather surprising job as a lady's maid for a wealthy countess.
A lady's maid. That doesn't sound like our rebellious La Maupin.
Right?
Was she trying to lay low, perhaps escape her notoriety?
It's possible, but even in this seemingly mundane role,
Yeah.
Julie couldn't resist a bit of mischief.
What did she do?
The story goes that the countess was a terrible employer,
Oh.
and Julie, always one for a bit of revenge,
Uh,
decided to play a prank on her.
oh.
As she was styling the countess's hair for a grand ball, She secretly adorned it with radishes.
Radishes in her hair. That's hilarious.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the Countess completely oblivious parading around the ball with vegetables in her elaborate updo?
I love it.
While everyone else tried to stifle their laughter.
Classic La Maupin. Even in disguise, she couldn't resist poking fun at the absurdity of it all.
Right.
But these adventures couldn't last forever. What about her final years?
Her last known love affair was with a woman named Madame la Marquise de Florensac, who was said to be one of the most beautiful women in France.
Okay.
They shared 2 years of passionate love before Madame de Florensac tragically died of a fever.
That's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder how deeply Julie was affected by this loss, especially considering her own mortality.
It's certainly something to ponder. We know that Julie herself died just 2 years later in 1707 at the young age of 33.
Oh, wow.
There are conflicting accounts about her final days.
Okay.
Some stories paint a rather romanticized picture of her dying in the heart of Paris, perhaps after a dazzling performance or a night of revelry in her beloved taverns.
That seems fitting for someone who lived life so intensely.
It does, doesn't it? But other accounts offer a more moralistic interpretation,
Oh.
claiming she died in a convent seeking repentance for her unconventional life.
That doesn't ring true to me. It feels like an attempt to impose a conventional narrative on a woman who defied convention at every turn.
I agree. It's important to remember that history is often written by the victors.
Yeah.
By those in power, and in Julie's case, it's likely that her story was shaped, perhaps even sanitized,
Right.
by those who wanted to downplay her defiance and her rejection of societal norms.
It's a reminder that we need to look beyond the surface, to question the narratives we're given, and to seek out the truth, even if it's messy or unconventional.
Exactly. And that's why Julie Daubigny's story continues to resonate with people centuries later.
I can see why.
In 2013, she experienced a resurgence of popularity
Really?
on the social media platform Tumblr.
Tumblr. That's interesting. What was it about her story that connected with that audience?
Well, Tumblr is known for its embrace of individuality, creativity, and challenging the status quo.
Okay.
And Julie's life embodied all of those things. People were drawn to her rebellious spirit, her unapologetic embrace of her sexuality, and her relentless pursuit of freedom.
It's amazing to think that someone who lived over 300 years ago can still inspire people today.
It is. Julie Daubigny's story is a testament to the power of living authentically, of breaking free from expectations, and of embracing the adventure of life, even when it leads you down unconventional paths.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the life of La Maupin. She was a truly remarkable woman who lived life on her own terms.
She what?
What stands out to you most about her story? What aspects of her life resonate with you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into history, be sure to subscribe to our channel and join us next time for another fascinating exploration of history's hidden figures.